Joining us now is David Laufman, former chief of the Counterintelligence and Export Control Section in the Justice Department's National Security Division. He held that position until 2018, and he oversaw both the investigation of Hillary Clinton's handling of classified records and the investigation of David Petraeus. Mr. Laufman, thank you for being here tonight.
Good to be with you, Ali.
We know that many Republicans are claiming that this investigation is political, but I just read what you said to Politico, that the only way the DOJ would have pursued this search warrant is if it had evidence that erased any notion that this would be politically motivated. What do you think that evidence might be, and why are you so sure about that?
Because I think in matters of this sensitivity, the department is going to err in an abundance of caution to make sure not only that they can satisfy the legal standard of probable cause to persuade a magistrate judge to issue the warrant, but to be able to withstand public scrutiny at such time as the warrant affidavit may be made public or the department can comment publicly about it. And so there is kind of a plus factor, if you will, that attends to these kinds of investigative endeavors where the department wants to make sure that they are as airtight as possible and so robust as to demonstrate cogently that there was more than an abundance of evidence to support the search warrant here or anything that flows from it. The section that you headed, that Mr. Bratt now heads, the Counterintelligence and Export Control Section, what about that can tell us anything about what the FBI was looking for? Why your department? Well, under Department of Justice policy, that section, the Counterintelligence and Export Control Section, or CES, is assigned responsibility nationwide for the investigation and prosecution of a number of offenses under the criminal law, including offenses relating to the mishandling of classified information. So the fact that Jay was personally involved in this matter signifies to me that there is a thread running through this consistent with the proposition that there are violations of mishandling of classified information that present national security risks that feature in this investigation. And that is almost certainly why he has been personally involved in helping to ensure that every I is dotted, every T is crossed with respect to how the investigation is being conducted, that consistent standards of Department of Justice enforcement policy and judicial precedent are being applied in evaluating how best to proceed in this matter.
You mentioned that could have national security implications, because there are some people who might argue, isn't this all a technicality? Sure, if you work for the government, as you have, you're not supposed to take anything home with you. It's not your property. You can't even take photographs that you didn't bring in. What part of this thing makes it clear that this isn't just a technicality, that Donald Trump shouldn't have government property at his home?
Well, there's a number of things that we know about already through reporting. We know that boxes were sent back many months ago from Mar-a-Lago to the National Archives, that the National Archives reviewed and was horrified to discover contained classified information, and that they made a referral to the Department of Justice about that very issue. And that is likely what triggered alarm bells and got the National Security Division at the Justice Department involved in the first place, that transformed this more from simply a case involving the failure to return records per se under the Presidential Records Act and into an investigation concerned about the exposure of classified information. There is nothing that concerns the FBI and the Department of Justice more than the notion that there is classified information out there in the wild, in a place that's not authorized to be, where multiple people may have access to it, including possibly foreign nationals. And of course, we know, as you put out in your program last night, that this president is no stranger to inviting foreign nationals in his proximity and displaying classified information. So there's no telling why the president would have wanted to bring classified information back to Mar-a-Lago, or why he wanted to have retained it, even after being confronted with questions by the National Archives and the Department of Justice.
Some of the people who have criticized the FBI and the Department of Justice in the last 24 hours sort of came to it slowly, and the criticism has sounded a bit like, the FBI better explain what's going on right now, otherwise people are going to lose faith in the FBI and the Department of Justice. Evaluate that for me. Should the FBI be explaining why there was a raid on the home of the former president of the United States?
Well, of course, there's a sealing order in effect right now that almost certainly restricts what the Department of Justice can say at any level in an authorized way about the search. I do think, though, there's probably some measure of public education that department leadership the Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General can engage in to reassure the American people that all the rules were followed here. They abided by every procedure constitutionally and otherwise in carrying out this search. In fact, it was carried out in a more genteel fashion than most searches are. The FBI agents weren't wearing their customary, windbreakers. They had a low profile in carrying the search out. It was done in a very collegial way. They didn't, break the door down. So the notion that this was carried out with some heavy-handed footprint is just, some kind of febrile, rubber room stuff that is being fed to the masses who support this president to create this kind of uproar. And it's causing what appears to be threats to the lives and families of law enforcement officers and Department of Justice officials. And that's something that the Department of the FBI have to take, and the U.S. Marshal Service have to take very seriously.